In 1987, the film Full Metal Jacket was released, creating a visceral phenomenon that seared itself into the collective consciousness of audiences worldwide. With a bifurcated story detailing the dehumanizing process of boot camp and the chaotic urban warfare of the Tet Offensive. The work was not merely a commercial and artistic success. It became a defining piece of memory for an entire generation. It stripped away the glory of combat, leaving behind a raw, haunting portrait of the duality of man. But behind those iconic characters, the drill instructor who became a nightmare, the recruits who lost their souls, were flesh and blood actors with destinies entirely their own. Nearly 40 years have passed, and time in its ruthless march has carved very different marks upon their lives. Some continued to burn brightly. Some chose the quiet dignity of a private life, and others saw their journeys halted by tragedy. Today, let us turn back the pages of the tumultuous lives of the cast that created the soul of Full Metal Jacket. RLEEERMEY as SERGEANTHARTMAN. In Full Metal Jacket, Gunnery Sergeant Hartman is not just a character, he is a force of nature. The terrifying heartbeat of the film's first half, R. Lee Ermey, a former real-life drill instructor, did not just act the role, he inhabited it. With his vein-popping intensity, creative insults, and unyielding discipline, he became the face of military authority for decades to come. At the age of 43, his performance was a masterclass in intimidation. Creating a villain who was also strangely a perfectionist of survival, he was the hammer that forged the recruits, shattering those who were too brittle. However, when the studio lights dimmed, Ermey's life entered a fascinating paradox. He was typecast as the ultimate hard man, the authority figure in films from Mississippi burning to C7N. Yet beneath the shouting and the stern exterior lay a soulful man who carried the invisible scars of his own service. He was haunted by the memories of Vietnam, admitting to nights of solitude and drinking to quell the demons of war. The Hollywood machine saw a soldier, but his family saw a man striving for peace. As his career evolved, Ermey found a surprising second act that softened his image. He became the voice of Sarge in the Toy Story franchise, a role that allowed him to parody his own intensity and endear him to a generation of children who knew nothing of Paris Island. This role brought him a sense of forgiveness and levity he had long sought. He amassed a fortune yet lived without ostentation, dedicating his time and resources to veterans' charities, never forgetting the brotherhood he came from. But the drill instructor's final formation eventually came. On April 15, 2018, R. Lee Ermey passed away at the age of 74 following a battle with pneumonia. He was laid to rest at Arlington National Cemetery among the rows of white tombstones he so respected. The voice that once terrified recruits now echoes in cinema history, leaving a legacy of a man who was, in the end, not a failure, but a soldier who found his way home. Bruce Boa as Colonel Pogue. In the chaotic landscape of Vietnam depicted in the film, Bruce Boa played Colonel Pogue, the cold embodiment of high-ranking authority. At 57, Boa portrayed the man who lectures the young soldiers about the duality of man and the Jungian implications of wearing a peace button while holding a gun. His role was brief but pivotal, capturing the disconnect between the command center and the mud of the battlefield. Powerful, authoritative, yet ultimately hollow. After this moment of cinematic immortality, Bruce Boa's life took a trajectory into the shadows born in Canada. But finding his niche in the UK, he had tasted success with roles in Fawlty Towers and The Empire Strikes Back. Yet the acclaim of Full Metal Jacket was not enough to secure a stable future. As the 1990s approached, the industry that once lauded him turned cold. He found himself typecast as the token American in British productions, a label that was both a badge of honor and a cage. His personal life began to unravel in tandem with his career. The death of his first wife in 1985 had left a void that no amount of work could fill, leading him into a spiral of grief and reliance on alcohol. He faced severe financial hardships, losing his home, and falling into debt. His second marriage was marked by silence and struggle. He retreated from the social circles he once navigated, living a solitary existence, taking small television roles not for the art, but for survival. The tragedy of his later years is a stark contrast to the power he projected on screen. On April 17, 2004, Bruce Boa died in Surrey, England, after a battle with lung cancer. He passed away with a modest fortune, but his legacy remains significant, proving that even a small role executed with precision can etch an actor's name into the history books forever. Kevin Major Howard as Rafterman in Full Metal Jacket. Kevin Major Howard starred as Rafterman, the young, somewhat naive combat photographer who views the atrocities of war through his lens, alongside Private Joker. At 31, Howard captured the manic energy of a young man trying to find his place in the madness culminating in his chilling excitement over killing a sniper. It was a role that promised to launch a stellar career, transforming him from an unknown into a rising star. Following the film, Howard sought to ride the wave of fame, securing roles in Alien Nation and other projects. He envisioned a path as a bona fide action star. However, the fickle nature of Hollywood soon revealed its cruel side as the offers dried up. Howard found himself drifting into the darker underbelly of Los Angeles. The fading spotlight pushed him towards substance abuse, and by the late 80s he was battling addiction, unemployment, and the collapse of his marriage, eventually losing custody of his children. Yet from the ashes of his acting career, Howard staged a remarkable reinvention. He returned to the very tool that defined his most famous character, the camera. He became one of the most sought-after portrait photographers in Hollywood, capturing the faces of A-listers like Tom Cruise. He found a way to stay in the light by controlling it for others. Despite this professional redemption, he carried a heavy heart, openly admitting to struggles with loneliness and the pain of his past failures as a father. His journey was one of survival and artistic evolution. However, on February 14, 2025, Kevin Major Howard passed away in Las Vegas at the age of 69 due to respiratory failure and pneumonia. He left behind a net worth of over $2 million, a testament to a man who fought his demons, and rebuilt his life on his own terms. Marcus D'Amico as Handjob. Marcus D'Amico, born in Germany and raised in the UK, was just 22 when he played the character crudely nicknamed Handjob in Full Metal Jacket. He was the nervous, sensitive recruit, a face of innocence quickly eroded by the brutality of the training. Though his role was supporting, his performance carried a palpable anxiety that added to the film's tension. It was the launchpad for a career that seemed destined for greatness. D'Amico capitalized on this success in the theater world. He became a darling of the London stage, earning an Olivier Award nomination for his role in the original production of Angels in America. He was celebrated for his portrayal of complex, sensitive characters, particularly his groundbreaking role as Michael Mouse Tolliver in Tales of the City. For a time, he was a beacon of talent, straddling the worlds of stage and screen with grace. However, behind the curtain, D'Amico's life was a tempest. He struggled with the pressures of the industry and personal demons. He turned down the sequel to Tales of the City, a move that alienated him from Hollywood. His life became a roller coaster of addiction and mental health struggles. He battled a cocaine addiction for a decade, facing hospitalizations, and a suicide attempt in 2015. He retreated to the quiet of Oxfordshire, living a modest life, far removed from the glamour he once knew. The tragedy of his later years was hidden from the public eye. On December 16, 2020, Marcus D'Amico passed away in Oxfordshire at the age of 55. From bronchial pneumonia associated with undisclosed health issues, he died with very little money to his name, a heartbreaking end for a man whose talent once lit up the National Theatre. Vincent D'Onofrio as Private Pyle. Vincent D'Onofrio was born in Brooklyn in 1959. At 28, he delivered one of the most haunting performances in cinema history as Private Leonard Gomer Pyle Lawrence, to embody the dim-witted tragic recruit who descends into madness. D'Onofrio gained 70 pounds of physical transformation that nearly broke him. His performance was raw, terrifying, and heartbreaking, earning him the title of the human chameleon. The physical toll of playing Pyle was immense. After filming, D'Onofrio required knee surgery and months to lose the weight. Mentally, the darkness of the character clung to him. He struggled to shed the skin of the monster he had created. Yet he emerged as one of the most versatile actors of his generation. He disappeared into roles in Men in Black: The Cell and reigned over television as Detective Gorin in Law, Order, Criminal Intent. Later, he redefined the villain Kingpin in Daredevil. D'Onofrio's life has been a battle against his own intensity. He has collapsed from exhaustion on set and has been open about his struggles with mental health, including severe depression and anxiety. His dedication to his craft often came at a personal cost, straining his relationships. However, his family has been his salvation. He found stability in his second marriage and in fatherhood, using his family as an anchor to keep him grounded in reality. Today, at 66, Vincent D'Onofrio remains a titan of the industry. He continues to work prolifically, writing poetry and acting, with the same intensity that made him famous. His net worth of $16 million is the reward for a life spent transforming pain into art. Dorian Harewood as 8-Ball. Dorian Harewood, born in Ohio in 1950, played 8-Ball, the confident and brave scout of the squad. At 37, he brought dignity and strength to the role, representing the significant contribution of African-American soldiers in Vietnam. His character's brutal death by the sniper serves as the catalyst for the film's climactic confrontation, a scene that remains difficult to watch. Harewood was already an established actor before the film, having starred as Jesse Owens. After Full Metal Jacket, he continued to have a prolific career, though often in roles that flew under the radar. He faced the racial barriers of Hollywood, which often limited the leading roles available to black actors in the 80s and 90s. Undeterred, he pivoted to voice acting, becoming a prolific talent in animation, lending his voice to Space Jam, Aladdin, and countless superhero series. His personal life has been a model of stability. Having lost his father at a young age, Harewood was driven by a need to provide and protect. He has been married to Nancy Ann McCurry since 1979, a rare feat of longevity in show business. He channeled his energies into music and public speaking, using his platform to inspire others. Today, at 75, Dorian Harewood is still active, recently appearing in the Bel Air reboot. His journey is one of quiet dignity and resilience, a man who refused to be defined by the limitations others placed on him. Stanley Kubrick as Murphy. Stanley Kubrick, the maestro behind the camera, was born in New York City in 1928. In Full Metal Jacket, at the age of 59, he not only directed the masterpiece but also lent his voice to the character of Murphy on the radio, a small Easter egg that showcased his total immersion in his art. This detail perfectly encapsulates Kubrick, the invisible hand controlling every breath, every sound, every frame of his creation. After Full Metal Jacket, Kubrick retreated further into his self-imposed exile in England. He transformed his Childwickbury Manor into a fortress of creativity, a place where he could control the chaos of the world. He spent years in silence, surrounded by thousands of boxes of research, obsessively developing projects like AI and the Aryan Papers that would take decades to, or never, materialize. As he aged, his eccentricities grew. He was plagued by fears of imperfection and illness, controlling his environment to a microscopic degree. His marriage to Christiane Harlan was a partnership of 41 years, yet it was strained by his obsessive devotion to his work. He loved her, but his true mistress was cinema. He spent the final years of his life crafting his last enigma, Eyes Wide Shut, a film that consumed him entirely. He worked with a feverish intensity, pushing his actors and himself to the brink of exhaustion. Just days after screening the final cut of his last film, the director's heart gave out on March 7, 1999. Stanley Kubrick died in his sleep from a heart attack at the age of 70. He left behind a modest fortune, but his true legacy is immeasurable, a filmography that fundamentally changed the language of cinema and a vision so singular that it continues to hold the world in awe. Adam Baldwin as Animal Mother. Adam Baldwin was born in Illinois in 1962. At just 25, he stormed onto the screen as Animal Mother, the nihilistic machine gunner who respects nothing but firepower. With his imposing size and thousand-yard stare, Baldwin became the symbol of the brute force of the American war machine. It was a breakout role that cemented him as the go-to actor for tough, no-nonsense characters. Post-Full Metal Jacket. Baldwin carved out a unique niche in the sci-fi and action worlds. He became a cult icon for his role as Jane Cobb in Firefly and Serenity, and later as John Casey in the hit series Chuck. He found a loyal fan base that appreciated his to play grumpy, dangerous men with a hidden heart. However, his career has not been without controversy. In his personal life, Baldwin has faced significant headwinds. He is one of the few openly conservative actors in Hollywood, a stance that has led to friction within the industry. His involvement in online controversies, such as Gamergate, sparked backlash and calls for boycotts. Despite the noise, Baldwin prioritized his family, navigating a near divorce in 2011 to reconcile and maintain a stable home life for his 3 children. He has focused his energies on charity work for veterans, staying true to the soldiers he often portrays. Today at 63, Adam Baldwin continues to work steadily, lending his voice to video games and appearing in series like The Last Ship. He lives a relatively quiet life, a survivor of both the jungle of Vietnam on screen and the jungle of Hollywood politics. Arliss Howard as Cowboy. Arliss Howard, born in Missouri in 1954, played Cowboy, the pragmatic and somewhat reluctant squad leader who tries to keep his men alive. At 33, Howard brought a grounded, weary humanity to the role. He was the everyman, the soldier who just wanted to get through the day. His death in the film is one of its most poignant moments, marking the end of reason in the chaos of war. After the film, Howard faced the typecasting struggle common to character actors. He was often seen as too intellectual for action roles, but too rugged for soft dramas. He battled alcohol addiction in the mid-90s, a struggle that threatened to derail his career. However, he found salvation in love and creativity. His marriage to actress Deborah Winger became a legendary Hollywood partnership together. They stepped back from the limelight to focus on art and family. Howard reinvented himself as a director and writer, crafting the acclaimed film Big Bad Love. He became a fixture in independent cinema, respected for his dedication to the craft rather than the paycheck. He found peace in a quieter life, balancing his work with raising his family on a farm far away from the paparazzi. Today at 71, Arliss Howard is still active, recently appearing in Mank and The Killer. He remains a quiet force in the industry, a man who survived the battles of his youth to find wisdom in his later years. Matthew Modine as Private Joker. Matthew Modine was born on March 22, 1959 in California. At 28, he stepped into the role of Private Joker, the narrator and moral center of Full Metal Jacket. With his peace button and Born to Kill helmet, Joker embodied the contradictions of the Vietnam War. Modine's performance was subtle, ironic, and deeply human, anchoring the film's chaotic narrative. It was a role that should have made him a superstar, but the aftermath was complex. Following the film, Modine famously turned down the lead in Top Gun due to his political beliefs, a decision that altered his career trajectory. Through the 90s, he worked steadily in films like Pacific Heights and Cutthroat Island, but his star power seemed to dim. Yet Modine was never one to fade away. He reinvented himself, turning to directing, writing, and environmental activism. He became a champion for independent film and a vocal advocate for bicycle usage as a green alternative. His personal life faced its own trials. He struggled with a deep depression following the death of his close friend and co-star Arlie Ermey, a loss shook him to his core. His marriage to Caridad. Rivera faced the strains typical of Hollywood, but they weathered the storms, raising 2 children, including Ruby, who became his emotional rock. In recent years, Modine has experienced a massive career resurgence, terrifying audiences as Dr. Brenner in Stranger Things and appearing in Oppenheimer. Today, at 66, Matthew Modine is more relevant than ever. He continues to act right and advocate for the planet. His journey is a testament to integrity and resilience, proving that a career is a marathon, not a sprint.